Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Monday, so happy Monday to you. You and I were going to have a fantastic week. I'll bring you the freshest updates from Ukraine, and one of the biggest ones, the first ones we're going to focus is the stabilization of one certain frontal area. Very important because this was the area where Russians made huge gains in the last month. We're talking 1 to 2 kilometers a week. That is, for Russian side, it's very fast. And I'll zoom in on the military map. It's a very crude map, but you can still see what's up. This is Pokrovsk right here, a Ukrainian logistics hub. You can already, in a very crude way, you can see the highways connecting to it, the rail is connecting to it. It is a logistical hub, a very important city for Ukraine and a very important target for the Russians. As you can see, this salient right here, focusing on Pokrovsk, has been advancing for the Russians in a very fast pace. And for the last week, there has been no advancements on the Russian side here because Ukrainians deployed their reserves to stop this salient. So yeah, for the last week, not much has been happening, which is good. Means the Ukrainians stabilized the front in the area. On the same frontal area, just a little bit to the north, Ukrainians actually counterattacked. And the city is called New York. I ain't kidding you. I mean, it's Kirillitsa, but it's called New York. It's a frontal city. Russians almost took the full of it, but in the last 2 days, Ukrainians counterattacked. And here is a drone video of Ukrainians planting their flag on a chemical factory building once again. So they retook about half of the city. The other half is still on Russian control. And I just want to read you what really was going on in New York. I mean, it has a wonderful name to it, and I'm sure Putin has special orders to capture that village or settlement because it's called New York. We have to take it. You know, this is what I imagine him saying to the troops. I'll read you a short thread what really happened there. Ukrainian forces became trapped in a chemical factory at New York, pinned in by the Russian advance. The situation arose in the first place because the Russians had captured the high central ground south of the town, and the Ukrainians had just the low-lying residential districts to the north that surrounded the chemical factory. The Russians launched a pincer attack around the factory, overwhelming the Ukrainians in the residential area and forced them out. The Ukrainians managed to fortify the chemical plant, making it incredibly difficult for the Russians to attack it with the resources they had to hand. In short, the chemical plant is a veritable fortress of bunkers, steel and concrete, with many geographical features around it that make attacking it difficult. Even just bombing it and shelling it would take weeks and masses of resources. Ukraine is in no mood to go through another siege like the one at Azovstal at the start of the war. Relieving the plant and restoring the positions was granted, and the order was granted to the special purpose 12th Azov Brigade. These are unquestionably some of the hardest battle-trained troops in the army. They were at Mariupol in 2022. The plan was to restore a line of communication and supply with the plant and drive the Russians back enough to properly reconnect it with the Ukrainian forces. It was vital that the Russians didn't know that Azov was coming. For maximum impact, they needed to deploy secretly, and this was achieved in short order. The brigade relished the chance to take revenge on the invaders in such scenario. The Azov brigade launched their attack with a complete surprise, overwhelming the Russians with men, drones and artillery. The speed of their assault and the accuracy of their artillery crippled the Russian forces as they lost any sense of control over the situation. The result was a major victory for the Azov brigade, retaking the north of the city and firmly reconnecting the fortified Ukrainian positions in the chemical plant. All of this ties into the stabilization of the Pokrovsk front, which is one of the most important frontal areas right now since Russians were pushing there heavily, and in the last week their advances had been stopped by the Ukrainians because they deployed fresh reserves into the area. Although the situation remains extremely tense and Ukrainians are taking heavy losses in the area because Russians have concentrated the majority, it's the most heavily Russian concentrated troop areas across all of the fronts, it still seems like Ukrainians have managed to stop the advance right now. Now, my friends, I want to show you what I'm wearing. Check this out. With love from Ukraine. Why I'm wearing this? Because I see you. I see what you ordered. This is your favorite t-shirt. Happens to be mine also. It goes well with the hat. Ukrainian trident, looks really awesome. Also, you can see it on my right arm. You can get this awesome t-shirt and everything else that comes with it. Of course, you can also get With Love from Ukraine hoodie, rehistore.com. Link is in the description below. Go and get it for yourself or for your grandmother. Let her also show what she stands for. There's I Love Ukraine, there's In HIMARS We Trust. These are designs made by you. They're all put on t-shirts and hoodies. They show what we as a community stand for. Go and surprise your family with a nice gift. Right now I'm wearing this Ukrainian Trident dad hat. Looks awesome, my friends. Link is in the description below, rehistore.com. My friends, now I want to bring you certain footage of locals in Belgorod region of the border areas. It's in Russia, confronting the Russian soldiers sent there. And there's a very specific reason why they're confronting them. This video could be called Russian soldiers robbing Russian civilians in Russia. Wow. We call the military police officers and have them come down here. Bring it all back. And the soldiers are right here covering their faces when a civilian babushka is confronting them. Bring the quad bike back. Have you lost your minds? We've been helping you since day one. This is the stolen quad bike. He also hides his face. What are you doing? Aren't you ashamed of yourselves? They took the quad bike, they took everything. Nahir. What a language. Don't you guys have any canned stew? You starving or what? Shameless. They've even broke into the house. They took stuff out of the house. So this is local Russian grandmother confronting local Russian troops who have been stealing from her local Russian house. It's so bizarre. There's no Ukrainians involved in here. None at all. This is in I would take this more as a meme. I cannot believe this is a reality. Now, my friends, the topic you've all been waiting for to be covered. Russian suicide drone landed in Latvia, crashed in Latvia, or hit a target in Latvia. We don't know because nobody tells us. We don't see any swift, strong, forceful NATO response. We see analysis going on, investigation going on. But what really happened? Latvian President Edgars Rinkēvičs says that a Russian military drone crashed in eastern part of Latvia yesterday. There is an ongoing investigation. We are in close contact with our allies. The number of such incidents is increasing along the eastern flank of NATO, and we must address them collectively. Now, I have an issue with this. I think this drone should have been shot down from the first second it entered Latvian airspace. I think all of the drones coming from Belarus or Russia must be shot down from the first second they enter. This is not about conserving your anti-aircraft missiles or not wasting them on a cheap drone. This is about sending a message, and we're not sending the message right now. We are sending another kind of message, and the message is that you can fly in our airspace and there is no response. I don't agree with this message. Next time it happens, we must shoot it down. Because I'm sure we know, our anti-air defense forces know from the first second these drones are in our airspace, but there's no decision to shoot it down. See, Latvia is right here. This is Belarus. Ukraine is right here, and Romania is down there. Why I say Romania is because these incidents have been happening in Romania quite often, every 2 months almost. One of Russian drones crosses into Romanian airspace to attack Ukrainian targets right on the Romanian border. Now, it happened in Latvia. We have seen it happen in Poland. This is quite often. Even if it's a mistake, which I think it's not, I think Russian forces are doing it deliberately. They're poking the red lines. They see, oh, nothing happened. So they push it a step further. That's how Russian foreign policy and military aggression works. You poke the lines, you poke the ground. Can you walk on it? Can you cross the line? What will happen? If you don't get punished, you go further. It's very simple and robust. There's no analysis needed here. That's how the entire Russian foreign aggression policy works. And right now, we're not speaking their language because we're not enforcing our red lines. Latvia is investigating the crash of a Russian military drone. NATO command has also been informed about the incident. Clearly, the drone was sent to the Baltics on purpose. Putin has once again decided to probe the ground, waiting for NATO to finally take some action in response to Russian aggression. Previously, Russian UAVs have invaded Poland and Romania, and airplanes have violated Finnish airspace. However, as before, NATO has dutifully remained silent in response to direct aggression, allowing Putin to further expand his window of opportunity. Let's see where such impotent response will lead the North Atlantic Alliance. Now, I am fully pro-European Union and pro-NATO. This is our biggest strength as Baltics, as an Estonian citizen. NATO and the EU is the biggest strength we have in Estonia. So I advocate not an aggression against Russia, I advocate an aggressive defense on our own soil. Defend the airspace and defend the ground from the first second anything tries to cross the border. That's what I advocate, and I think we're not doing it enough right now. Ukrainian drones have been periodically crashing into Russian fuel stores, or let's say it how the Russian Ministry of Defense says it. Russian fuel storage facilities have been destroying Ukrainian drones by bumping into them, by burning the drones to the ground with their fiery fuel that is flaming. Well, anyway, I'll read you a short thread. All of these attacks are so repetitive that I'm not even reporting them because you would get bored out of your mind. But every now and then I have to read you the summary to know what is the actual outcome of these everyday or at least weekly attacks against Russian oil refineries. At least 100,000 tons of Russian fuel is estimated to have been destroyed in Ukrainian drone attacks. The attacked fuel depots were built underground for protection, but were moved to the surface to save money. That's the story with almost everything Russian. If you are any kind of leader of any kind of project in Russia, the system enforces you almost to save money so you can steal it, or your superiors or inferiors can steal it. The entire process is that money moves from top to bottom, and everybody who is smart on the way steals a little bit, so the guy who actually does the job at the very bottom has to do it with minimal assets. So if it's intended underground, it's actually going to be on ground because that's cheaper and it still does the job. Now they may have to be buried once again. In August 2024, Ukrainian drones attacked two fuel storage facilities in Russia's Rostov region. Base number 7, also known as Atlas, and Kamensky district Flagman in Proletarsk. The attacks caused massive damage. I remember reporting both of these attacks because they were the bigger ones. There were also many smaller ones. Satellite photos published show the extent of the damage in Flagman. 15 fuel tanks destroyed, 3 partially damaged, and the status of another 33 unknown. At least 3 tanks destroyed at Atlas. The facilities are owned and operated by the Russian state agency Rosreserv and are used to provide fuel to Russia's southern military district. They store jet fuel, diesel fuel, and other flammable and lubricating materials transported by rail. Each tank had a capacity of 5,000 cubic meters of fuel. Flagman had 32 such tanks, while Atlas had 64. I mean, it's a huge fuel reserve, 64 tanks right next to each other, just a juicy target. Based on the extent of the destruction, it's likely that 90,000 tons of fuel were destroyed at Flagman and another 15 tons at Atlas. And now for the final summary. I know half of my viewers are American and you guys you don't like numbers. You like football fields and Liberty statues. So I bring it to you, the comparison in the American comparison coming in. This is the equivalent to the amount of fuel needed for 1,000 Ilyushin-76 transport aircraft, or to refuel Russia's entire tank fleet at least 30 times. Direct financial losses are estimated at over 7 billion rubles or 77.8 million USD from fuel alone, plus more from the lost facilities. So we can maybe round it up to 100 million. Pretty impressive fireworks, 100 million. Now, my friends, I'll bring you vodka experts. Not experts, but exports. Vodka. So this is a chart of vodka exports 2022 to 2023, so the year the full-scale war started. As you can see, Sweden is leading, France is right second. I'm not a big fan of Swedish or French vodka because they're very, very sweet. They're like sugar vodkas for what we Estonians call like almost syrups. But the world loves them, so it's like almost 500 million, it's millions of dollars, so 500 million a year from vodka export. Very nice. Poland is next, and the United States. Hey, but look at that. Estonia is right here with almost 10 million. I'm proud we get our vodka out there in the world. Ukraine is here. But do you notice there's no Russia or Belarus? You know, the biggest vodka countries in the world supposedly have no vodka exports because nobody wants to buy. But check this out. Just one thing here that what is this? Look, Estonia, nice. We're holding our place as the last in this list. So we're playing with the big boys, and then suddenly Ireland takes over. What the hell, Ireland? What are you doing? 10 million? And then look what Ireland is doing. Raising. They're just selling vodka like crazy. 2022, what happened in Ireland? Suddenly you decided, okay, we're just gonna export the hell out of our vodka. Raising. Even United Arab Emirates is losing. Ireland is just like taking over the world. Next year, Ireland is just one big vodka bottle. What? All right, my friends, enough of the jokes. I'll give you a video from the front. This is somewhere in Russian trench. This is a Russian soldier, and these are the phones of other Russian soldiers. They're being nailed to the post because Russian commanders are forcing their soldiers to destroy the phones. Because why would your soldiers have a phone if you know that soldier is going to die tomorrow or after tomorrow? But if they do have a phone, they can film it and post it online, which is really bad press for Russia. If they don't have a phone, you can at least use them as meat and nobody finds out. So it's a lot cheaper for Russian generals to save face of their army and not publish shaming losses by forcing all of the troops to destroy their phones. In that case, they have some kind of control over the information that gets out. And if you believe your troop is not going to survive more than a week, they don't need a phone anyway. So that's why the order came in. Now, my friends, I'll bring you a video from a Ukrainian defensive line. So this is, in contrast, the Ukrainians. What are they doing? They're using their phones, not nailing them to the post, and they're using them to show about the bird they found. Look at this. Nice, beautiful, colorful bird with the Ukrainian flag. Of course they're gonna care. I see always these videos about Ukrainian troops caring about animals, and they're not connected to war, but I will always, and I will keep always including them in a video, because in my eyes, an army is a cross-section of a society. How your army behaves is how your country and your society and how your culture behaves, how it is in the world. That's what I've seen in Ukraine. That's what I see. I never see videos of Russian troops caring about animals. I haven't seen one. And they are, look at it's a beautiful bird. They're nurturing it back to life because it's injured. Now, my friends, I'll give you a thread. You have seen a boxing match, you have seen MMA fights, or even wrestling, right? Whatever is the case, if you have seen a conflict fight as an entertainment, it's usually based on equal terms. If it's not a fair fight. So Ukraine and Russia is not a fair fight. And Ukraine is still holding their own. That says something about their capabilities. Ukraine had, for the most of the year, a shell famine. On top of that, it is constantly constrained not to use parts of its limited Western stockpiles on targets in Russia. Russians should have all the advantage to decisively move deep into Ukraine, yet they not even managed to take 1,000 square kilometers in almost a year, while even being outflanked in Kursk, and in the process lose more territory than they gained. Ukrainians are fighting with one hand bound behind their back, and yet manage to keep the enemy at bay, which is superior in numbers and ammunition. You cannot overstate the amounts of Ukrainian heroism. It is only the latest proof that Russia is a Potemkin superpower. It primarily relies on its Soviet stockpiles, which by various analysis will be dried up within the next 2 to 4 years. Overlay this with the data I provided before and you see that it's obvious that Russia can be beaten soundly and thoroughly. All what it takes has been said numerous times. And I do believe it every time I see it. I stand behind it. Unfortunately, some Western leaders still are sleeping in their soft pillows. They don't want to open their eyes to the reality that the previous era of cheap Russian gas and economic growth based on that cheap Russian energy is over. It is over. We're in the new world. We have to take new decisions. We have to face the new reality and adopt. Improvise, adopt, overcome. That's what the Western leaders of Western Europe need to wake up to. Ramp up production in the West. Weapons and ammunition production. Supply what is needed to Ukraine. Remove all constraints. Enforce sanctions against Russia and especially those who circumvent them, like Kyrgyzstan or Germany's exports to Kyrgyzstan, which are 2,500% up. What are they buying in Kyrgyzstan? Putin's Russia and its fascist Ruski Mir project can be defeated. In fact, there has been never a better opportunity to neutralize them once and for all. The opportunity is now, right here. Now, my friends, I'll read you a Russian war correspondent Slatkov's report about how he sees the situation is handled in Kursk, and he's not really satisfied. I am shocked by the scale of the economic losses we are suffering due to the enemy's incursion into our land. Hundreds of thousands of refugees who will need to be compensated for their lost homes and more. All the children from Sucha are being sent to Artem, which is a significant decision. We can't yet comprehend how much Russian businesses in Sucha have lost. Supplies, construction, materials, valuable items, documents, a vast fleet of construction equipment. If we had managed to evacuate it all, it would have been better. This comes from a Russian military correspondent, and he has been quite vocally criticizing the Kremlin recently. So there's no reason for him to lie about this situation. Again, now I'll bring you Russian soldiers' analysis about their battalion commander. He was recently changed to a younger guy, and I've seen these young lieutenants straight out of military school, wars, whatever you want to call it. Fresh lieutenants are the worst. They have their nose up and they cannot be told what to do because they know best, and they get soldiers killed. Experience runs the military, not books from the war school. About mistakes at war. Not long ago, our battalion commander was replaced. The previous one, a cautious pre-war lieutenant colonel, was replaced by a 25-year-old senior lieutenant. A 25-year-old guy, usually they're cocky and they're straight out of military school and exactly what I described. This is the issue with every military, actually. But in this case, we're focusing on the Russians. The old commander had many issues, particularly with the coordination between units. There was barely any. We hoped things would improve, but it turned out things got even worse. One of the first bold decisions by the new commander was to move the mortar closer to infantry. At first glance, the advantages were obvious. Increased accuracy, reduced flight time for the rounds, and ultimately more enemy losses. What could go wrong? The key issue was the dominance of enemy drones, especially the Kamikaze drones. The mortar battery suffered its first loss while searching for a new position. A gunner from one of the crews was killed. He was 30 years old, mobilized, and hadn't had time to start a family. He often said he wouldn't return to the war after his leave, having grown tired in his second year, but he did come back. He and his platoon commander were moving through the trees looking for a new spot. A slow and difficult task. Nobody likes being near the mortar crews. Of course, they were spotted. A kamikaze drone struck. And it didn't stop there. Another crew was hit while relocating. More losses. One soldier died and the commander lost a leg. Both 25. The one who died was an anime fan and didn't drink. So what the soldier decides to outline here is that he was an anime fan and didn't drink, because these two things are like characteristics of that guy. In Russia, if you don't drink, wow, you're already standing out. And he was an anime fan. Millions, tens of millions of those in the West, if you know somebody. I mean, Russians also consume the hell out of Western culture, even nowadays. It's such a bizarre thing to understand that this Russian soldier, 25-year-old on the front, watches anime every day, if he is able to, of course, on the front, even on the front. And he doesn't drink, right? Makes him quite a human. The real problem after moving positions was delivering 120mm mortar rounds. For those who don't know, each round weighs 16 kilograms or 35 pounds. A soldier in full gear can carry one round over several kilometers. A full trip for the crew equals 5 rounds, and to stay operational, they need about 20 rounds daily. This kind of resupply is more manageable with 82mm mortars, where the rounds weight is 3.5 kilograms. With those, 2 rounds a day usually is enough to keep going. The familiar Ural truck couldn't reach the new positions anymore, and the Chinese buggies frequently broke down due to harsh, constant use. The crews found their own solutions. At first, one soldier got a dirt bike, but after 5 days it broke. He went to the nearest village for spare parts and was killed by a kamikaze drone on his way back. He was 30, a new contract soldier who had joined in January 2024. So, I'm not going to read you the rest, but the whole point, there was many more losses. The whole point is, a new lieutenant comes into command this Russian artillery battalion, and immediately, one by one, it blows out of proportion. This small order to bring the mortars closer to the infantry after 2 weeks has translated into 2 entire crews lost. Commanders lost, gunners lost, one by one. They gotta get the dirt bike, then they're hit. They gotta find new location, then they're hit. These small orders on the front mean everything, and they come with experience. New guys don't have experience. This is why rotation is such a difficult thing to do. Because you rotate in new troops, they immediately start making these mistakes, and mistakes on the front always translate to troops lost. Now, my friends, we'll jump to the Kursk front for a moment. The armed forces of Ukraine have sent an engineering brigade to Kursk, Russia, which will support offensives and operations there. The 49th Separate Engineering Assault Brigade was introduced into the Kursk region, the task of which are to provide support, primarily technical, for large-scale offensive actions, including in urban areas and when overcoming water obstacles. So by looking at which units are sent where, we can of course tell what's going to happen. If they're sending a support brigade to Kursk, that means they're going to cross a river or they're going to form some kind of a large offensive operation in the area. I'm very excited to see that. Now, my friends, I'll bring you again Ukrainian fire-breathing drones. You can see them right here on the screen, and I want to stop here for a moment. Why Ukrainians have these drones and why Russians don't? It's an innovation. Not very cheap, but it takes time to figure out how, and what's the biggest issue with this is how the termite is able to be dropped like this. Check this out. The drone is flying, seeing a target, boom, drops one termite, always burning. Seeing another target, drops another, boom, and always keeps burning. Russians are testing their drones right now, and the issue is it's very hard to control the pace of termite burning because it's such a material you cannot put out. Once it burns, it burns. How do you control that it burns slowly and drops the burning particles all the time? That's the biggest issue here. Russians haven't figured it out. Ukrainians have, and the effect is right here. They're just burning Russian positions to the ground. This innovation, as I mentioned before, gives Ukrainians about 1 month of advancement. And in 1 month, you can be sure Russians will have these drones. That's how it works always here. But this 1 month will destroy a huge portion of Russian defensive lines in the front. And I just have a video for you right here. I mean, this footage is aftermath of one of these termites. It just flew up across the sky, phew, like that. And a row of thermite was dropped and everything burned. Everything. Radios, weapons, ammunition, trucks. Look. It's all gone. Defensive lines, they have nothing left. Phones, personal gear. So this is very cheap, very cost-effective way to burn the Russian defensive lines to the ground. And I'm telling you, yeah, in 1 month, we can see Russians flying these same drones, but right now it's a party for the Ukrainians, and Russians have no antidote for it. My friends, now for the first time of this week, to give you a nice kickoff for the week and happy Monday, I'm gonna butcher some Buy Me a Coffee monthly members with my Estonian pronunciation. Bucket list tour kuide. Hey, I've said your name many times. I don't think that's your name. What is that even? What is it? Jeromies Köller. Arturo Verdin. Mario juoksen. Gotta be Estonian because juoksen means running in Estonian. So we have one Estonian here. It's a very rare occasion. Hey, Mr. Estonian guy, I gotta ask you, why did our vodka exports fall so suddenly in 2022? Maybe we needed it for ourselves. Who knows? My friends, thank you for watching this video. I'll be back on Wednesday for you, so be sure to be back also. And in the meantime, go and get your grandmother a shirt that says, "With love from Ukraine." I mean, have you seen a grandmother wearing a shirt with a drone with a Ukrainian flag? You haven't? Well, it's time to make it so. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Wednesday, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.